What's up, everybody? Jay Sherer here with you, author of the time travel novel TIMESLINGERS, Amazon top seller for about 11 to 16 weeks. Showed up on the Amazon top seller lists. Today, I am talking, though, about self-published book marketing. So if you're a self-published author and you want to market your book, what are the core components that you need to be thinking about in order to market your book? Just to give you a little bit of a background, I actually went to college for marketing because I wanted to figure out how to market my books. I wanted to be a writer, but I had gone to college and I thought, you know what? I'm not going to major in some sort of like English or creative writing. I'm going to major in marketing and then bring that knowledge over to being able to try and sell my books, my self-published books. So if you have questions about self-published book marketing, go ahead and leave those in the comments and I will see them and I will get to them. You can ask them at any time and I may address them at any point during the video. But I'm also going to be doing this marketing 101 for people to consider all of the different aspects as it relates to marketing. Marketing tends to be more interconnected than most people think, and most people don't really think about all of the different types of things that they could be doing to market their book that I think would be really important for them to think about. I have the whiteboard today. I don't normally have the whiteboard, but I have the whiteboard today because I may be going through some of these things. Josh Taylor from Network 1901. What is up? What is up with you, my friend? If you have any questions about this, just leave them in the comments. And Josh, I will get to your questions as well. So the first thing I want to talk about is that there are 4 pillars of marketing. And most people will only think of one pillar when they think of marketing. So when you hear the phrase or the term marketing, most people will go straight to promo. Okay. This is promotions. They'll think of promotions. Marketing equals promotions. Now that's not true. Marketing is much bigger than promotions, but a lot of people will take it there. In fact, I've worked for several organizations that thought that marketing was only promotions. And I had jobs that, I was called the director of marketing, but I could have just been called the director of promotions and have been the same activity. And so one of the things you don't want to do when you think about your overall marketing picture, if you're a self-published book author, is you don't want to think about your marketing only as promo. It's not just promo. It's all 4 of these categories, which I'm going to get to in a minute. So that's the first mistake you can make as a self-published book author, is to think when you talk about marketing, the only thing you're talking about is promotions. No, that's a big mistake. You have to think about all 4 of these things in terms of your marketing. So what are these 4 things that I keep talking about? Because they're kind of far away from the camera, so maybe you can't even read them. Blow up the screen to make sure you can read it. But when you talk about marketing 101, there are 4 P's to marketing, okay? The first is product. Product is a part of marketing. If you are an engineer and you build products, you're still part of actually marketing because the product itself is part of the marketing function. You also have price. How are you going to price your product? That is actually part of the marketing function as well, as is place. Place is an excuse to use another P word because place actually means just where is your product going to show up? Where are you going to distribute your product to? So product, price, place, and then promotions. So promotions is a huge part of marketing, but just keep in mind, it is not the only part of marketing. There's all kinds of other things that we need to take into account in terms of our marketing. Now, I also have something written off here to the left, and I'm not going to talk about that quite yet, but I'm going to get to it later. And it's really important because it affects all 4 of these different categories. So let me unpack some of these categories for you guys. If you have more specific questions that I'm going to get to, just put those specific questions into the chat, and I'm happy to answer those questions for you. But let's go through and add a little bit more flavor to each of these 4 P's and what we're actually talking about when we talk about marketing. The first one I want to talk about is products, because the product is perhaps the most essential part of your marketing plan. It is the thing that you are going to do, that you are going to create. And as writers, we care deeply about this part of marketing, because this is the creative part of us. The creative part of us is creating a product. And so when you think about creating a product for other people, you're basically probably creating, what's up, Alexander? Good to see you. If you have any questions, Alexander, make sure you leave them in the comments below. I'll get to them all. the product is a lot of times for us as writers, the most important thing is where our heart is. It's what we're trying to bring to the world. It's the thing that we're most excited about. And honestly, some people will just stop here. They'll just stop at products and they won't do anything else. They won't do anything else on top of that. And Alexander says that the video is running a little bit blurry right now. Hopefully that will work itself out, because there's not a whole lot I can do about that. That's just relative to internet connection speeds. So hopefully it will get a little bit better. But Alexander, what I've covered already is that we are talking about marketing 101, product, price, place, and promotions. So this is what says product right here. That's what I'm talking about, is us writing the books. This is the books that we are now creating. What are the types of things that you should think about when you're creating your book? Okay? You're creating the product. This is what the end user is going to interact with. So when you create this book, when I create Timeslingers, what are the things that I'm going to think about? Well, one, you want to think about, good grammar, good storytelling, having a book that's really, really solid. That gets into a lot of the writing aspects of marketing. As self-published writers, we're thinking about those things. We might think about genre. Genre is a big part of our product. Features, the features of the product. Maybe there are illustrations. You'll notice that in Timeslingers, you would call these illustrations that Nathan did, you would call these things features. It's a feature of the book that other books don't have. So it's part of the product, right? The fact that this is a serial story is part of the design of this product. And if you think about this as the design of a product, you can start to think differently about, like, okay, well, how would I want to design something for other people to interact and engage with? And that's what product is all about. What type of product are you creating? You could be creating a printed book. You could be creating an ebook. You could be creating a full cast audio drama or a full cast audio book like we're doing. You could be creating a comic book. And so all of those things can have different features associated with them. Our audiobook, for example, is going to be a full cast audiobook, which means it has additional features, not just one narrator, but a whole host of characters that are voiced by the people in the book. So your product is going to be something that you obsess over, but you also have to think about it in terms of the end thing that people are buying. We tend to think of it as the story and our writing craft, and that's great. We need to think about those things. But on top of that, we need to also think about how we package the product, how we bring the product to the marketplace, how the marketplace will be encountering the product. Will people be able to flip through it, right? Will that be the case? Or, will people have to look at the previews on Amazon electronically? How are people going to actually encounter your product when they encounter it? So that's the product. That's your book. The book itself, it could be an audio book, it could be the book. Sometimes you have multiple products. If you have an audio book, if you have a print book, and you have an ebook, that's 3 different products that you actually are sending to the market. And you just want to be conscientious of the fact that your book is your product, okay? So that's a major category for us, but most people will not talk about it under the context of marketing and marketing 101, but it is a very important part. The second thing I want to talk about or introduce to you, if you have any questions about products, go ahead and put those in the chat here, and I will get to those questions as well. The other thing we want to talk about is pricing. Pricing is actually part of marketing as well. So most of what marketing is, if you're defining what marketing is, it is the activities that we do to bring the product to the marketplace, the product to the audience that we're trying to hit. And so that's what kind of all the components of marketing are. Now, there's other components too. You could look at operations in terms of Amazon has to ship you this book in the mail, right? But that's not really marketing, because that's a little bit more of it's not really a customer facing thing. It's an organizational thing that people are doing behind the scenes. And I'm not going to get into all the different aspects. I'm just talking about marketing because there are so many different aspects. I have, in addition to my marketing degree, I also have an MBA. And so I don't want to go into all the different aspects of business that we could go into. I just want to focus primarily on marketing here and keep it pretty basic unless you have specific questions. And then I'll go really deep on any specific questions that you actually have. So product is one thing. Price is the next thing. Price is important to marketing because price is one of the things that people pay attention to when they're going to purchase your product. And so when they see your product on the shelf, they may even compare the price of your product to other products that are also on the same shelf. We don't even have the price listed on ours because ours, TimeSlingers, you can find it on store shelves, but it's not on a lot of store shelves. It's mostly just purchased electronically. And so where are people seeing the price of your book, and how are they comparing the price of your book to other things? So pricing is really, really important because it's what people are willing to pay for your product. And pricing is also one of those things that I think a lot of people get wrong, because there are certain things, like books are very similar to commodities in terms of when the price goes lower, you see a lot of people buying more. So it's like a supply demand type of a thing, right? When the price is lower, people will buy more. But also you have to think in terms of, what are people willing to pay for my products? That's the essential question. And how do you figure out how you should price your self-published book? What are people willing to pay for it? And if people are willing to pay a certain amount, that's the amount that you have to charge them for it. If you were to say like, well, people are willing to pay $5, but I really need to charge $10, it's not gonna work very well for you, because people are only willing to pay $5. And so you have to keep playing with that ratio and figure out where your book should really be centered in the pricing. So product, price, place. Place is basically just distribution. And this is where you have a lot of options today. If you think back to before the days of Amazon, you really only could get your book into a few different types of places. You could set up a stand in your front yard and sell books that you had purchased and sell people books in that regard. But most likely you were going to be selling books through the bookstores that you knew, that you were local, let's say. And if you were a self-published author, that was really difficult to get your book listed in one of the major brick and mortar buildings, like Barnes and Noble or Borders or something. It's really difficult to get your book into one of those places. But now, with the electronic means of distribution, your book can be all over the place. And there's different services that you can use that will get your book into brick and mortar stores, or you can just go all electronic. Now, as it relates to what we did, I'll explain what we did with TimeSlingers in all of these different categories, just so you get a feel for how we were making our marketing decisions. But you have a lot of options available to you in terms of distribution. However, some are better than others as it pertains to self-published works. And so I'll talk about what I think those are shortly. But last one I want to talk about is promo. This is the one. Promo is the thing that most people will call marketing. But if you look at this, look at how much stuff you have to consider in addition to promo. So don't think of marketing as just promo, because that's a really misguided way to assume that all of these things are going to come together to be able to pull this off really well, right? So promo is really important, but so are all of these other ones. I mean, think about this. The product is almost of the utmost importance as it pertains to us as writers. So promo can look like PR, public relations. Public relations could be you going to local newspapers or even bigger newspapers and saying, hey, look, I released this new book. I'd like to be interviewed, whatever. PR can look like you reaching out to podcasters and saying, hey, I'd like to be on your show because I have a new book and I'd like to talk about it on your show. I think your audience would like it. All of those kinds of activities are public relations. It is going to people who have audiences and saying to those people, we would like to get in front of your audience. Would you like to do that for us? So, for example, the Dads That Drink podcast, special shout out to those guys, and the YouTube. They have a Facebook live show that they do. They reached out to me and said, "Hey, we really love TimeSlingers. We'd love to have you on the show to talk about TimeSlingers." And so I said, "That sounds awesome." And so that was one of the things that I did for public relations, was going on the Dads That Drink show. So promo, PR. As a part of promo is really important. One of the major reasons it's important, because it's free. It's free. Public relations, generally speaking, is free. And if people want to charge you to come on their show or something like that, that's I don't know. That's probably not something that I would recommend, especially not for self-published authors. Maybe it could work in some specific circumstances. I'm not sure. Alexander, I'm going to get to your question in just a minute. There's also ads and in-person selling. So promo in person is what? I've been to some Comic Cons, for example. I've had a big booth at a Comic Con. And so if you're in person at a Comic Con, that is basically promotions where you're in person. You could do book signings at your local comic book stores or your local brick and mortar. Now, obviously, with right now, as I'm recording this, the COVID-19 pandemic is going on. So doing in-person stuff is ill-advisable. And I do not recommend that you do that. But, you can still do PR. You can still be on podcasts. And you can still do advertising. And a lot of times when someone says marketing 101 as a self-published book author, you go straight to, you don't even think about public relations or in-person marketing. You go straight to advertising. And it's like, oh yeah, marketing equals advertising. But as we talk about this giant picture of marketing, advertising is this like tiny little thing that occurs here. So these are the 4 P's of marketing, and these are the 4 things that we need to think about. I'm going to introduce you to one other concept here, but only after I get to Alexander's question. So Alexander says, the video quality is good now, which is great. Thanks for that. I'm glad that the system has figured it out. What are some services we can use to distribute our books to physical stores? So other than Amazon, where are some other websites that we can use to sell all of our stories? This is a very, very good question. So we're going back up into this category, right? We're going back up into the place category here. And Alexander is basically saying, like, how is it possible for us to sell to some of the brick and mortar stores, especially when the physical stores? This is you're going to ask this question after COVID, certainly, because Josh says, don't go out into the world. And that's true. Be careful going out into the world. Wear your masks. I don't want any of you guys to get sick. But one of the questions is, how do we get our books into brick and mortar stores? Now, for self-published book authors, this is not the initial move in my mind. This is a move that you would do down the road after you can point to some milestones that you've hit. Now, why do I say that? If you look at TimeSlingers, I'll use TimeSlingers as an example. TimeSlingers is available in print format. You can go on to Amazon right now and buy TimeSlingers as a printed book. Chances are, if you were to go down to your local Barnes and Noble, even though this was an Amazon top-selling novel, chances are if you go down to your local Barnes and Noble, you will not find TimeSlingers on the shelf down there. Now, why is that? Well, it's really difficult to get your book included in the brick and mortar stores. TimeSlingers could be in the brick and mortar stores because TimeSlingers is in a catalog because we publish TimeSlingers under Ingram Spark. So there's a service out there. Another publisher that I know that I respect suggested that we publish with Ingram Spark. We did so, and Ingram Spark will do distribution of the printed books to stores. It'll also do distribution of the printed books to Amazon. Now, having used Amazon and having used Ingram Spark, personally speaking, I will be using Amazon in the future and not using Ingram Spark. And I'll tell you why. If you look at first of all, data is very difficult to get if you go through a third-party distributor. So Ingram Spark is a third-party distributor. I can either work directly with Amazon or I can go to a middleman or a middle entity, in this case, that being Ingram Spark. And Ingram Spark will get my book into all of those other places. Now, in my experience, the Amazon will give Ingram Spark its data, but when Amazon gives Ingram Spark its data, it's like a month and a half down the road. And as a person who likes to know how my advertising is performing, or as a person who wants to know how my public relations activities are performing, that delay in data, in me getting data from Ingram Spark, is a pretty big killer to me. I would rather get data almost immediately. So when you publish directly through Kindle Direct Publishing, KDP, when you publish direct through Amazon, I actually feel like you get a lot better data that way. You can also sell printed books. The biggest problem if you go direct through Amazon is that your book is not going to show up in a lot of other places because Amazon is just going to, you can do extended distribution. through Amazon. But even then, they're taking a different profit margin. So when it gets to price, one of the things you need to think about with pricing is what kind of margin are you going to get on your books? And if Amazon's going to take a really big, you can't see, I know you can't read this because it's too small, but this says margin. And Amazon will take a big chunk of your margin. And so if you think about that, and I will tell you this too, full disclosure for our book, Timeslingers, Amazon top selling time travel novel for somewhere between 11 to 16 weeks. We made the most money off Amazon. We got the most sales off Amazon by and large. Like 95% of our sales probably are off Amazon. So for me, I don't get enough benefit out of using Ingram Spark. So the next book we publish, Death of a Bounty Hunter, will be published back through Amazon directly. So if you want to get your book into those places, you can get it. You can get it done. You can probably get it done through Amazon. I have not explored that in detail. So Alexander, I don't know that process through Amazon. There is a way to do it, I believe. But you can get it done through other third-party vendors like Ingram Spark. I just don't like using them because I like to get my data faster. And most of my experience with Amazon has actually been really great. So, and by the way, I'm not affiliated with Amazon in any way, shape, or form. Nobody pays me any money for any of that kind of sponsorship. But that's just my personal experience, and I'm happy to share that. But that's kind of how I feel about it. Josh from Network 1901 asks, do you feel like low pricing is a great online distribution tactic, or do you feel the audiences won't take it seriously enough to purchase? Would it make more sense to go for the usual book pricing? That's a really good question. That's a question relative to this whole section over here about pricing. And when you talk about pricing, you are really talking about competition too, as you notice in Josh's question. Josh's question was about, how low should you price your book, given the fact that you're competing with, like, we are competing with the time travel novel, like Timeslingers. We're competing with Stephen King because he has a time travel novel that's out there. And so as you think about that as a writer, your first thought is, well, and Josh asked the question perfectly, where does pricing need to be? Because if you price too low, the problem is that people will think that your book is not valuable. If you price too high, people will go, I don't even know who this person is. Why am I going to take a risk on Jay Sherer and Nathan Sheck when I could go to Stephen King? I know Stephen King is a big deal. He makes a living doing this stuff, right? So it's a whole different deal when you get to, and by the way, even having someone as like a publisher. So we're self-published. We basically publish this under the Reclamation Society. In fact, we have our little logo here on the side. But the logo that's up in the top left of this video right here. But it's Nathan Sheck and I run the Reclamation Society. So it's self-published. I mean, this is why we did this on purpose, because we wanted to make an organization around what we were doing as opposed to just being the two of us doing it by ourselves. But it's essentially self-published. When you have a publisher behind you, that will give your book a certain amount of weight, because people will think, well, I mean, somebody thought that this person was great, so meaning the publisher, and they chose to publish. And Josh says, screw Stephen King, long live Jay Sherer. Look, Stephen King's a good writer too. I'm assuming that I'm a good writer. It depends on what you read in the Amazon reviews. There's a few people that do not think that's true, and that's just life. And I'm going to talk about that in a minute too. But yeah, I think that pricing. So look, pricing is something that you need to test. One of the things that I learned from doing some tech startup work, I was involved in co-founding a tech startup. One of the things that I learned was you need to test everything. You need to try something and see if it sells at that amount. And so pricing is a really, really tricky thing. When Timeslingers is full price, we get a conversion rate that is like 17%, which is, by the way, a really high conversion rate. But when it's on discount, we get a conversion rate of like 40%. Now, what do I mean by conversion rate? Conversion rate is people show up to Amazon, right? And they look at all the Amazon reviews, and then they either purchase it or they decide it's not worth it and they're not going to do it, right? So I draw a little dollar sign if people purchase it, or I draw the nope, we're not going to purchase it, we're going to leave. Your conversion rate is this percentage here of whether or not people are actually buying, right? And so the TimeSlinger's conversion rate when it's on a discount is huge. 40% conversion rate means that people showed up, they went, oh, I want to learn more about this book, I think I want to buy it. And then 40% of those people, 4 out of 10 people, go ahead and purchase the book. A lot of times you'll get, boom, all of these people head over here and they go, oh yeah, I don't really want to buy it. Maybe they read a review, right? They read a review. There was a review that came in for our book, and I'll talk about why this happens as a self-published author, because it happens to the big guys too. It happens to Stephen King. They will come in and they will say, this one guy says, this book isn't worth the paper it's printed on. He didn't like it. Apparently he didn't like it. That's going to happen to you, by the way, as a self-published author. You're going to have people that don't like what you do. Don't worry about those people, because you're going to have a lot of people who love what you do, and that's great too. Like Josh says, Jay Sherer is on par with the greats. I appreciate that, Josh. So yeah, this conversion rate's really high when it's on a discount. It's not as high when it's not on a discount. It's a pretty good conversion rate, but when you're playing with price, and this is something I'll suggest to you all too. When you're playing with pricing, I can do a whole video on pricing. But when you get specifically into pricing, you want to make money off your book. You don't want to lose money off your book, which is a possibility. So be careful that you don't do that. Because if you're advertising your book, even if people are buying it, if you're having to spend too much on your advertisements, you're losing money overall. And that's something you want to be very, very careful of. Obviously, nobody wants to lose money on their books. It's not very sustainable. You will not be able to write for very much longer, right? So yeah, great question, Josh. Price is something that you need to play with. You need to figure out at what dollar amount do people go, you know what, I can't take the risk on names that I don't know. At what price point do they go, oh, it's priced so low it cannot possibly be good? And this is why discounts can be good, because if your book sells for $10 normally, but it's discounted to, $8, people can go, okay, well, it's on a discount, so I'll take the risk. So that can happen to you as well. I think discounting is a really good strategy for self-published authors, but you have to be really careful that when you do your discounts, you're not going to start losing money because of the discounting that you're doing. So just be careful of that. Number of reviews you get is really important too. This is why your distribution channel matters a lot. Your distribution channel matters a lot because when people show up to look at your book in that channel on Amazon or on Barnes & Noble or whatever, they're going to start seeing the reviews. So the reviews are going to make a difference in whether or not they buy your book, which could affect, like, for example, your conversion rate, which I talked about earlier. And by the way, if there's specific things that you would like to learn more about, just let me know in the comments, and I will then do a video based on that specific principle, right? As a self-published author, you're doing something that a lot of other authors are not doing, and that is you are your own business. You are the CEO of your business, and one of your products are your books. And so self-published authors, it pays to think like a CEO, which means you're thinking about all of these aspects of marketing, not just promo, not just your product. Obviously, we're all thinking about our product, but also pricing, also distribution. These are all things that you're thinking about as a self-published author. If you sell your book to one of the big publishers, chances are you're worried about product and promo. They're going to tell you what price it's going to be listed at. You don't need to worry about that. And they're going to tell you where it's going to be distributed. You don't need to worry about that much either. But you need to still worry about product and promo no matter who you are. Stephen King needs to worry about that, right? To a certain degree. So yeah, so that's a basic overview of all of the different aspects of marketing. If you have further questions, let me know. Before I close out this video, though, I want to talk about something. My first Udemy course is all about finding a target market. And I spend a lot of time. In fact, most people would say that I think that a lot of people, I've had a couple people that didn't understand what the course was. And so they took the course and then they left me a review and they were kind of like, oh, this is not what I thought it was. I think generally, especially self-published self-published writers don't have a lot of extra time on their hands because a lot of them, like probably you, have another job. And so when you have another job, you can only dedicate a little bit of a time per week to your self-published work. But there's a lot of considerations to take into account when it comes to this whole marketing plan that you're going to create for yourself. It's a lot of work. And so this course that I have is all about finding an audience for your product, which is a marketing activity. Finding an audience for your product is a marketing activity. And the reason I say that is because, and the reason why this course goes into this huge amount of detail on how to go about finding your target market. Because if you don't have a target market, you can do as much promo as you want, and your book is going nowhere because you're going to spend so much money on promo that you're going to be hitting the wrong audience groups. I'll tell you a story. The reason why we have a review on Amazon that says that the book is not worth the paper it's printed on is because we did not hit the target audience that we were trying to hit when we started doing our advertising, right? Your advertising will sell books to people who will never like your book to begin with. So the importance of finding an audience, that's what's written over here on the left. You can't really see it because my microphone's in the way. There you go. It says audience. Your audience matters to this entire marketing plan. It matters to the way that you construct your product. It matters to the way that you do promo. It matters to the places where it shows up. One of the things that I realized early on was that Timeslingers, because of the serial nature, it's like a serial story that's been turned into a novel. What else are serial stories that are popular in the modern day? Comic books. So a lot of people who love comic books also love Timeslingers. But there are a lot of people who would read Stephen King's books and go, well, this is really like very literary, right? Timeslingers is not that literary. It almost feels more like a comic book in a lot of ways. And so this is why you will see some people show up on our Amazon reviews. Some of them will say 5 stars. And then the other people will say like 1 star. It was the worst book I've ever read. Why are they saying it's the worst book they've ever read? Because when it comes down to it, they were never in our target audience to begin with. So when you think about all of these aspects, where does your target market go to buy your books? What does your target market want in a book? What price is your target market willing to pay? That's why I started the first Udemy course that I started. I started it saying you need to find an avid audience or a target market. That's what that course is all about. It's like 4 hours worth of stuff about how to find a target market. Because if you don't, all this stuff is not worth your time. It's just going to be a lot of unfortunate work that you put into it. Josh, last question I think I'll take from on this video. If you want me to do other videos, if you want me to go into more depth on this stuff, I can do that. Plus, I'm coming out with more Udemy courses in the future. You guys can check those out. And let me know if you want to take the Udemy course, and I can give you a discount code, and you can get a discount on the Udemy course. But Josh says, promo-wise, do you feel that it's smart to spend the time sending copies to reviewers within your genre? Ooh, that's a really good question. I think it depends. If you have identified a target market that you feel really strongly about, and you validated that that's your target market. So course 1 in my Udemy courses is all about how to make an estimate of who you think your target market is. The next step is to then say, but is this really my target market? And so you start to run a few campaigns. Maybe you start to do a little bit of PR. Maybe you, like Josh is saying, maybe you send the book out to somebody who you think would really like it. You have to verify that your target market is who you think it is before you start spending money on like advertising, right? So first of all, I've never sent my book to be reviewed by somebody who's going to charge me money for it. Now, I've had people approach me, and we're going to actually do a brand deal with a smaller brand that has a book that they're publishing. And I even said to them, I said, I'm uncomfortable taking money for doing a review of your book. I will do a review of your book, but you'll spend your money on other stuff. So they're spending their money on us doing some videos for them, for some promo videos where we mention their book. But we're not charging for the review because people will charge for the reviews. I'm not into that. I'm not into paying for reviews. But if I know somebody fits my target market, I know that they review books online. Yeah, I would send them a copy. I think it's worth it to send them a copy because you probably want a relationship with that person anyways. Maybe if they review your book and love it, they'll ask you to come on a podcast that they do, or they'll refer you to 3 other friends who are doing podcasts. All that stuff is really, really valuable. So I would say, yes, promo-wise, sending out review copies is a great idea, but you have to find your target market. The last thing you want to do is send out a promo copy. I did send out one promo copy for somebody that said they were going to review the book. I have no clue if they ever did it or not. And I would have to go look it up, but I have no idea if they were in my target audience. I just knew the person. Basically, I had made contact with this reviewer's mom because she ran a podcast that I wanted to be on. And she said, well, I don't know. I don't really have a topic to bring you on the podcast for, but my daughter is doing book reviews. You wanted to do a book review? And just for the sake of saying, like, yeah, I appreciate you taking the time to interact with me, I'll send your daughter a free book and she can review it. But in general, I would say don't pay for it unless you know this person reviews books in my target market. And if I pay for a review, I will sell enough books to cover the cost of the review. Or if you're just highly confident they're going to give you a good review, then that can be a good idea. And then Cody just mentions here too. Cody, by the way, is my brother, which you can see as his last name. He says, I'm not Jay, which is obvious. Just kidding, Cody. But I personally use Draft 2 Digital for digital distribution outside Amazon. Oh, so there you go. So there's another distributor that you can take a look at is Draft 2 Digital for distribution outside of the Amazon world. For full context, our next book, Death of a Bounty Hunter, photo behind me on the wall, is coming out as a full cast audiobook. It will be available in print and it will be available as an ebook. All 3 of those options will be available on Amazon. And Amazon, I think right now is the largest distributor of books in the world. Now, when I say the audiobook's going to be on Amazon, obviously you're working through ACX, which is, I believe, an Amazon-owned company, and then it's going through Audible, which is also Amazon-owned, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, Amazon owns a lot of things. So I think that'll do it for today's video. Marketing 101. Just remember the 4 P's that you need to cover: product, pricing, place, and promo. Product, what your actual book is going to be. What are the features of that book? What's cool about that book? The price you're going to have people pay for that book, that they're willing to pay for that book. Do your research and figure out what that looks like. And then also where you're going to distribute your book. And then finally, how you're going to promote your book to other people. Don't just think about marketing as promo. Think about marketing as all of these things. And remember, if you have an audience, all of these things fall into place way easier. And that's just part of it. You're welcome, Alexander. I'm glad it's helpful. I will get to Alexander's question and then I'll close it out. How do you get review promo copies into the hands of influencers? What websites, online resources do you use to distribute to those influencers? Great question. The cool thing about a lot of influencers is that a lot of them are approachable in some way, shape, or form. Sometimes they're represented by big agencies and you have to go through the agencies to get to them. Sometimes you can actually just reach out to them on YouTube. Or sorry, you can reach out to you can reach out to them on YouTube, but sometimes you can actually reach out to them just via Twitter. What I would do if I were you is take a strategy where you say, I'm going to start small. So I'm going to start with some people that have smaller followings. I'm going to reach out to them. I'm going to ask them if they would mind, promoting my book in some way, shape, or form. One of the strategies that I did for Death of a Bounty Hunter, because we wanted to get it into the hands of people during this quarantine time so we can get some extra reviews, is that I said, hey, I'm Jay Sherer, author of the Amazon top-selling time travel novel TIMESLINGERS, and we're coming out with a steampunk novel. So I went out to steampunk outlets that I just searched for online, found steampunk outlets, and said, hey, we would like to give you the opportunity to promote our book because it's only 99 cents for a limited time on Amazon. And we're going to even run some free promo days. we'd like to give your audience the option of downloading it for free because we know that they love steampunk. We know this is very targeted towards a steampunk audience. We think that they would like it, and let's promo it out there. And so that was really ended up being a really good strategy for us because we got some additional sales at 99 cents, which is a promo rate, obviously, because the rate's going to go way up when we publish it soon here. You can still get it for 99 cents, and you should, but it's going to go up in the future. So you can reach out to people, and then like Josh says here, there's a whole group of book YouTubers, and so reach out to some of those people, and you can start to engage with them, especially if you've done your research and you know who your target market is. Well, if you like this video, if this is helpful to you, hit the like button for me. I would really appreciate that. And also refer your friends. If you got other people that you know that are self-publishing books and they need to know a little bit more about marketing, just refer them to this video. I realize this is a pretty high-level overview of what marketing is. That's why I called it Marketing 101. If you want a Marketing 201, let me know what kind of topics that you would like to hear. Just leave me a comment down below and let me know that. As I said, leave me a comment, hit the like button, subscribe for more videos just like this. I'm going to keep doing more and more videos as I learn in the process of publishing my stuff. As I learn some of this stuff, I'm going to try and bring that back to you so that you have that knowledge as well. And with that, guys, I really appreciate everybody showing up. I'm very grateful to you. Thanks for the questions. Thanks for the great interaction. And I will see you on the next video. Keep writing, keep grinding. Just check out our next video next time around. In the meantime, I'll see you guys later.